Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Tonight I'm going to be doing a general reading to give you some guidance and information, just things you need to hear right now, and hopefully this will be of some service to you. Alright, our first card, we have Chalice. Okay, I get the sense this is really relating to like a feeling of vacation, of like, sit back and sip on a nice little beverage, right? It's not always about working so hard, sometimes you do have to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Right, then we have bandage. Okay, so there's this feeling of something is being healed right now, some core wound maybe, or maybe there's something in your life that is acting like a bandage to some wounds or troubles that you're going through. And then we have focus here. So this feeling of, like trying to take inventory on like what is important and honing your focus on one thing. So I really get the sense that this spread is trying to encourage you that like, there's so many things that you can get caught up in the world. If just like, I need to do this thing, this metric of productivity, these projects that I want to work on. It's just like, there's so much all the time. But I think what this is really saying is like right now what you need to focus on is like your relaxation and your healing work. Because I really get the sense that there's no time like right now to focus on these things, right? Because, right now those ambitions that you have are kind of not fully realized just yet, but once the ball really starts to get rolling on those, it's almost like you might not have that time to really put in that energy of like being able to relax, just feel calm, feel stable, and work through some of these wounds. And it's always better to get the stuff done when you have that kind of free time or you have this free mental energy, right? It's so hard when you have a lot of things going on and you're trying to patch up these wounds that you have and try and heal from past troubles that you've gone through. And when you have these moments of downtime, that's when you can really pour that energy into yourself. And it's just so much more effective than trying to go through your life with an open wound and all these things that you need to work on. I think right now this is like a really important time to just focus on, rewarding yourself for how far you've come and like learning to savor your accomplishments, right? You've worked so hard for so many years to get to this point and you have to let yourself rest a little. I mean, I think maybe if you look at yourself 5 years ago or even a year ago, you might have told yourself, okay, when I get to this point, like it's all going to be okay. I'm just going to be able to take a breather and finally I can rest. And then you reach that point and you kind of forgot about that and you're just like, okay, I need to keep going, I need to keep pushing forward, there's so much more to accomplish. But it's like, just remember, like you told yourself you'd reward yourself, and sometimes the best reward is just sitting back and relaxing and not feeling like you need to be actively doing anything in this moment. All right, let's pull some cards. Ooh, we got Gigabyte. Is like a lizard using his electrical powers. Okay, so it's this feeling of like, this electrical kind of energy that I think is brought about by really honing your attention and focusing in on one thing, where like if you kind of spread your attention too thin, it's sort of like this general field of energy, and certainly things can be accomplished there, but I think when you really focus in directly, it's more like kind of like a laser beam, or like we're getting like this electric shock of like so much more can be accomplished in such a shorter amount of time with like the same amount of energy just by focusing it on one thing. Whereas like spreading yourself too thin, like sometimes also like it doesn't give you the jolt that's required, right? It's this kind of low level electrical buzz. But when you focus it in like a lightning strike, sometimes that's what's necessary to get over a certain hurdle. And like I'm specifically thinking of things relating to emotional wounds, where like, if you think about these things that you're trying to work on from like maybe 5 minutes a day, that's still good and you're still making some progress, but that's like really surface level. But taking the time to do these deep dives where maybe you spend a few hours focusing on some wound that you have, and like that can be a little difficult sometimes, so like maybe bringing in the Chalice energy and maybe taking a few hours to do this in a really gentle way of like, if you're healing some wound related to like, let's say you feel like you're not quite deserving of love, of like maybe not necessarily always just like spending 2 hours in your journal writing about all the experiences that led you to believe this. but maybe spending some time with a chalice of like, well, I'm gonna spend 2 hours showing myself some love, of like, eat my favorite foods, have a nice drink to treat myself, watch a comfort movie, surround myself with like the things that make me feel good. And in some ways that is like a very healing thing to do. And you just dedicating that time of like a concentrated effort, it can really accomplish so much. You'd really be surprised. All right, then we have Slower Swallow. Ooh, yes, I love this one. He's so cute. Oh my gosh, just like a little bird. And yeah, like taking things slow. Okay, stop to smell the roses. Listen to the birds sing. Like, you'd be surprised how many days you might go without noticing bird song until you realize, okay, I'm just gonna take it slow, focus on the world around me. Maybe if you have a lot of thoughts just flowing through your head all the time, like, try and focus in on just using your attention. Like, take things out of your mind a little bit and look through your eyes and use your senses to feel things around you and really slow things down. And you realize that where hours or days flew by without you even focusing on anything at all, almost, it almost feels like now you're suspended in time, where it feels like you palpably feel every second. You can see every petal of every flower, and you can hear every note of the bird's song just by engaging these powers of focus and attention. Okay, let's draw one more card from this deck. Okay, we have Artifact Sanctum. Ooh, I love this one as well. It's like all these gears and kind of strange mechanical objects. And it's really this feeling that, like, there's a world inside you that is like the complicated mechanisms of a clock ticking on, where when you're not paying attention to it, it's still going on. These processes that have been rolling since you were a child, of internalizing things from the external world, integrating things into yourself, compartmentalizing things, repressing things, emphasizing certain traits, of constructing a persona. Like, all of these processes are going on without much effort from you. And it really is this really complex, balanced mechanical system in some ways. And being able to focus in on some of this can really be illuminating to you, because you kind of maybe don't notice that this process is going on all the time in the background. And sometimes taking that time to just look inside yourself and look at the complex mechanisms can really bring you some interesting insights. And it really is this feeling of like understanding that things are moving slowly, right? And you can't rush this sort of thing. It's like you can't necessarily speed up the clock. The ticking is going to just happen at a consistent rate, and all you can do is kind of focus your attention, look in on what's happening, but you can't necessarily change any of the gears too much, right? It sets the whole machine off balance. So sometimes it's not always about interfering with things, but sometimes just observing. And trying to understand these complex mechanisms that I think, our human brain will never fully be able to grasp unless we become a master mechanic. All right, and let's pull some tarot. All right, we have the Five of Cups. So this is this feeling of like ruminating on, these spilled cups when there's cups still standing behind you. And again, it's like relating to this feeling of the chalice, where like it's so much easier to reflect on the mistakes we've made and regrets and missed opportunities, and just like time that has passed, and just feeling like we've wasted time or haven't made the best of it, when in reality there are still cups standing in front of us, and there's cups that we have poured that we need to drink from. And it's like your drink is sitting there getting stale when you're ruminating over all the things that have spilled, when really, if you took the time to delight in this enjoyment of what you have now, it's really can be so rewarding, instead of letting this present cup become yet another spilled cup in the future, right? So it's about not turning your back on what you have currently and really learning to appreciate it, because there's so many rewarding things that are happening in this current moment. And to really choose to ruminate on the past instead of being present in the moment, it really only does yourself a disservice. And it's honestly one of the worst disservices, because you get into this habit and it just becomes your mode of operation, where for your whole life you'll always be looking backwards instead of being able to actually enjoy things in the present moment. All right, and then we have the Ace of Pentacles. So this is really a feeling of something being offered, of this kind of the sun's light shining down onto a garden and making things grow. And I think this really relates to this feeling of the Artifact Sanctum card, of like this process that takes time, right? It takes time to let the flowers grow, and it's really this complex biological process. This feeling like you can't really rush it, right? Like the energy is just coming down slowly. And like I mentioned with this kind of electrical flow of like the energy is always present, and it's sometimes just about honing it or learning to appreciate it, open yourself up to it. And things will flow into you. It's not always about putting in so much concentrated effort of like I mentioned, of like really active things, of like constructing new things, but really just appreciating what you have now. Tend to the garden, take out the weeds, but you don't necessarily need to like put in new fields, another new field, like tend to what you have now. Okay, and I dropped a card. I feel like that's important if I drop a card. Ooh, the High Priestess. Perhaps this was in fact an important card, because this is really this feeling of like, yeah, being able to control these energies, and with this feminine feeling of not necessarily needing to exert some sort of act of control on things, but learning to work with the energies that are flowing around you and the processes that are already happening, and just having this mastery of like the way things can naturally progress, right? Or sometimes if you interfere too much, right, like you're maybe picking the fruit before it's ripe. But leaning into this High Priestess energy, it's this feeling of more like, understanding when exactly the perfect moment is to pick the fruit, and really just being tuned into what's happening, really being aware of everything, right? This feeling of all-knowingness, where you have observed things from a really calm, high standpoint, where it's just like, you really have a clear picture of what's going on, and a clear understanding of how processes work. And from this, you're able to really focus your energy again, where when it comes down to that moment of making a decision, you have perfectly balanced all the options, and you know exactly what's right. Instead of this feeling of like, I need to always be deciding something now, it's understanding that decisions that are more metered out can carry a lot more weight. And again, like I said, it's like this kind of lightning bolt energy, where like if you really try and force yourself into deciding things all the time, it can kind of feel like you're diluting your energy. Whereas if you say like, I'm going to sit back and observe, and when the moment really calls for it, have that decisive action, it just feels more like a lightning bolt, and it's just like something that can really shake things up or really be powerful. All right, let's pull some more tarot. All right, ooh, we got the Nine of Swords. I'm still learning Roman numerals. Like, you'd think it wouldn't be that hard. I have been trying since high school. We're working on it. Again, it's this feeling of regret, like this contemplating all these swords hanging over your head, like really feeling like this Five of Cups energy as well. It's like, you're up late at night thinking about all these things that have happened in the past, and it's almost like you're sabotaging yourself, because if you just laid down and got yourself a nice 7 to 9 hours of sleep, you would be able to go about your day so much better. Like, what is ruminating really achieving for you? It's not really making anything better. And like I said, it's like kind of overflowing your mind with just too much energy, too many possibilities, where it's almost better to kind of stay a little bit clear-headed, and really shine the sun's light onto things, and kind of have this more sunny outlook to life in some ways. Like, you're illuminating your mind instead of polluting it with ruminations and dark thoughts. It's just a better ground for you to cultivate your inner power. All right, then we have the Page of Swords. So it's this feeling of like understanding your ability to make decisions, and how it does carry some weight. Or maybe in the past you were kind of swinging that around a little bit too much, of like, again, like I was saying, like just feeling like you need to always be deciding something. You know, I really need to make a choice. I need to figure it out, is really what this energy is giving. When really it's not always about swinging around so wildly and like desperately grasping at like trying to figure things out. But again, like returning to this slow, contemplative way of life where you're taking inventory on everything that you have, and that will guide you so much better in life than sometimes just throwing things at the wall too much, and just learning to sit back and observe sometimes. And let's pull a few more cards. All right, the King of Pentacles. Okay, so this is this feeling of, you know, relishing the fruits of your labor, of like, you have constructed this garden all on your own, and now it's time for you to eat from it. And like I said, like sip from your chalice, of, you know, being able to look at this kingdom that you've created for yourself. I'm not feeling like you're lacking anything. Like you have everything in your material reality that you need to live like a king, honestly. Like you have all these precious items, you have the tools of your craft, you have the comforts, the creature comforts, the comforts of home, all the entertainment you could ever need. Just probably you have a lot of really wonderful materials in your home, whether that's like intellectual materials, like you have a lot of books that you find very stimulating, or maybe artists' materials. You have some very fine papers that you've collected over time, some blank canvases, that sort of thing. And it's really about not feeling like you need anything more, like you need to go out and chase things and like, you know, buy things in the world or acquire more. It's really about sitting back and, yeah, like just being appreciative of what you already have. All right, and then we have the Fool. Ooh, okay, I feel like this is a good card to close out on. So it's this feeling of like, yeah, openness, new possibility, and, you know, you really, the Fool is going in with like this tiny little bag on his back, jumping off a cliff. So it's this feeling of like really understanding like what is most important to you. Because sometimes, like I said, like this drive of feeling like you need to acquire more and more things can almost like lead us off the path a little bit and distract us from our healing work and from our sense of calmness, of peace, of being able to relax, because it feels like we never have enough. But I think really what the spread is kind of talking about is learning to appreciate the things that are most important to you. And this is like your inner world and your decisive actions and your mastery of energetic operations, and as well as like the few material items that are very precious to you that you've worked very hard to acquire. And really, these are all you need in order to really make something beautiful in the world and leap into a new possibility. You don't necessarily need to have a really established sense of like be very far in your career or have like a lot of material objects, like own a house or own a car, in order to take this next leap of faith. Really, you have everything that you need already. And it's really just about taking inventory and remembering how to practice these powers of focusing your energy here and being able to just like really hone your power and remember where it lies, and using the illuminating power of sunlight to sort of shine into yourself, take inventory on what you have, and really see clearly everything within yourself. All right, well, I hope this video was somewhat helpful or entertaining, and I hope to see you in the next one.